Today I'm joined by my good friend Elena, singer-songwriter, circus artist, aerialist, nutritionist, and functional fitness trainer. Based out of Minneapolis in my own home state of Minnesota, she's performed across the globe, is an avid traveler, and a bit of a Europhile just like me. Today we're exploring how Elena weaves together her art, embodiment, wellness, and self-expression to create a life and a business rooted in depth, freedom, and transformation.
Thank you so much, Mandy. What a beautiful introduction. I know I've told you this before, but your writing, the way you speak is so poetic and beautiful. I really appreciate that about you.
Thanks. I'm so enthused to connect with people like you. I know that we always have really interesting conversations that are both intellectual and soulful, which is great. There's no lack of feeling and no lack of thought and logic and intellectual interest. So it's always a good time.
Yes, I definitely consider you one of my kindred spirits.
Yeah, for sure. And for anyone listening, a little bit of a background on how we know each other. Originally, I met Elena at an audition to do backing vocals for our good friend Herschel McPherson. Shout out to Herschel. Elena was already in the band, and I didn't end up joining the band, but I ended up staying friends with Elena and Herschel and the whole crew. So we've had a lot of interesting meetings in different places in the world, from Barcelona to Minneapolis to somewhere else. I can't remember.
Yeah, and I just want to speak to what a wonderful experience that was for me. I felt like Herschel was one of the first people that really saw me and saw my potential as a musician and gave me an opportunity and just really encouraged me as a songwriter and singer. And it was actually when I was with him, we were busking one night on Nicollet Avenue in downtown Minneapolis, and a random group of guys walked by and they were listening to me play guitar. And they were like, "Hey, our opening act dropped out. Do you want to open for us?" And I was like, "Okay." And so that's how it all began. So thank you, Herschel, for your unwavering support and for connecting us.
We're fans of Herschel here.
Yeah.
So we've kept in touch all these years since I think that was maybe, what, 2015? Was it earlier than that?
No, that had to be 2012.
No way, really?
Maybe 2013 at the latest.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's been a while. You're one of the only people that I know with all this kind of overlap with me in terms of singing, songwriting, and performance, and the travel stuff in particular, and the kind of multi-passionate creative side of life for sure. So I always find it interesting to hear your perspectives on things since there's so few people I feel like I can relate to on that front. Let's start with something a bit simpler. So you describe yourself as a soul enchanted by the human experience. So tell me what's been enchanting you lately.
So I've been really obsessed with a new circus apparatus that I've been learning for a little over a year now called aerial pole. I have been doing circus my entire life since 1997. So couple of decades. And when I first started my pole journey, I was actually learning dance pole, and I had such a love-hate relationship with it. This had to be in like 2017. And I felt really frustrated because, just with all of my circus training and experience, I felt like it should have come so much easier to me than it did. So I would kind of train on it and then I would like stop for a while. And when I moved back to Minneapolis, I started taking pole classes at studios, and that really helped, surprise, surprise, to have some coaching. And one day last fall, I was in one of the studios that I train at, and I saw a woman training on aerial pole, and I had literally never seen this apparatus before. And I was just like, wow, that looks so cool. So maybe like a few days later, a week later, the studio actually, it was their aerial pole, so it just kind of like hung out in a corner of the studio. So I decided to take it out and give it a whirl. And I think one of the things that really enchanted me with it was that it's not rooted to the ground like a dance pole is. So it felt more flowy and more natural for me because it had that similarity with the fabric while still having skills rooted more in pole. So it was a new challenge because the skills on fabric are so different. Like fabric is a bendy, malleable apparatus that you are like manipulating to your body. Pole, you are manipulating your body. So the dynamic between you and the apparatus is completely opposite. So it was a challenge to wrap my brain around bending my body to the apparatus instead of the other way around. But having it floating in the air just gave me more of a connection to the apparatus that felt more like home because of how it reminded me of the fabric. So I've just been like so excited about learning these new skills, and it's just so cool. Like, circus is such an incredible sport and art form to me on so many levels. Not only the athleticism, but the self expression, the growth, the self discipline. There's just something about it that's so special to me and so close to my heart.
This woman is strong. For anyone who's never seen Elena do this stuff, I mean, you've been posting these reels lately, and something you just posted the other day, the last few days, was like, how is she this strong? This is nuts. Like what you're able to do with these inversions and holding your body, it's something crazy. A lot of people are just like, what in the world? And it's kind of just a part of you at this point in second nature. Not that you don't work super hard for it, of course.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's one of the things I've also appreciated about aerial pole is it requires a different kind of strength than the fabric. And it's challenging me to learn new pathways of the body. And it's really amazing to have breakthroughs where this skill I was working on called a deadlift. I had my eyes on this skill for about a year. And, I would just like be fascinated watching these other aerialists tackle these skills. And yeah, it blew my mind too. And it just felt like so far away. Like, how could I ever do this? I had no concept of what it would feel like in my body, but I just kept making little baby steps over and over and over again. And that diligence eventually pays off because your body starts to learn the movement and the pathway and refine itself until finally I was like, oh, I'm doing it. And I think one of my frustrations with this apparatus has been, well, I'm probably more flexible and mobile than the average person. I don't have the flexibility for a lot of the moves on pole. And so I found that taking a more strength-based approach has been more rewarding because I've had so many flexibility limitations. It's been exciting just tapping into this new level of what my body is capable of. It's been fun as well teaching workshops. I love the experience of being able to spread this skill with others, and it also teaches me things because there's things I've never had to explain to someone else before. So having that experience of like catering it to someone else's body and needs and self-awareness and how they learn and making it accessible to them is really truly rewarding and a great learning experience.
Well, your life dances between so many roles, from artist and healer to teacher, traveler. If you had to name the chapter that you're in right now in your life, what would you call it?
I feel like I'm kind of on the tail end of wrapping up some major growth and milestones. It was back in 2015 that I first decided I wanted to pursue functional medicine and nutrition. And what prompted me down that path was I had been experiencing a lot of health issues throughout my early 20s. And it was really frustrating going to conventional medicine doctors and practitioners and them running tests, scratching their head, and not really having any answers for me or any way to support me besides just like some Benadryl. Like, for example, I was breaking out into hives chronically. And I was just so fed up and exhausted that I almost felt like I didn't have a choice because I needed to get answers and I wanted to heal my body. I wanted to get to the root of dysfunction rather than just like putting a band-aid on it as conventional medicine tends to do. So it led me down this path of going back to school and completing a second bachelor's degree in exercise science so that I had the prerequisites, because my first bachelor's degree was a BA in women's studies with a minor in Spanish. So I felt like I needed a stronger foundation in health science before I pursued a master level degree in biochemistry and nutrition. So I completed that. And of course, like the way I am, I'm like, oh, I can reach it. I'll dream up an idea and I'm like, oh, it's just right over there. No problem. Let me just bust this out in like a year or two. 10 years later. So it ended up taking me 2.5 years to do my second bachelor's. It took me 3 years to finish my master's degree in functional medicine and nutrition because COVID happened just one term into me starting the program. So that dramatic impacted the pace I was moving at. So from there, I finished the degree in 2023. I was actually able to use a lot of that knowledge to heal my body, and I am probably the healthiest I've been since childhood, which feels amazing. And I've been working on my clinicals. I have to complete 1,000 clinical hours for my certification. So I'm currently under supervision and I'll be wrapping up my hours this spring. So I am taking clients and working with folks, and I'm also being supervised by a handful of really incredible practitioners, which has been a wonderful experience. So all that to say, I will be wrapping up this chapter that I've been working on for 10 years this next year, which is going to be very exciting, as well as a music production diploma that I've also been working on for the past 2 years, which I will complete in December. So I'm really excited about everything to come. I have a lot of exciting plans and ideas for this next year, including releasing a lot of new music and getting back into circus performance.
There's so much there. I mean, this is why I wanted to talk to you, because you're such a great example of someone who has these different lanes of interest, but you are so strategic and long range committed to making these huge leaps. I mean, music production in particular was something that I know that you wanted to get more skilled at, and you just went for it. Same thing with DJing, like you just learned it and you just did it. A lot of people will say, oh yeah, I really want to do that, or I should do this, or I should do that. I wish I was better at this, and they don't commit themselves. And you've definitely committed yourself. I mean, 10 years is a big chunk of time. But you've made crazy progress on so many different things in that time, which is just nuts. Like a lot of people just struggle with that. I mean, even I struggle with that. And we've talked so many times about how it's really difficult to move everything forward at the pace that you want to when you're not solely focused on one thing. And there's all this, conventional wisdom of like, you need to really focus on one thing and then you can expand, or you need to become known for one thing and then you can, whatever. There's always these like barriers that you need to jump over in order to X, Y, or Z. And you're just like, nah, I think actually I'll just do all of them as I want to. And it might not be moving as fast as you'd like, because I know we've talked about that, but it is moving. You're making significant strides in all these different things. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you for that. And yes, it definitely does come at the cost of moving at a slower pace. And that's something that I've had to grapple with and accept. I did try the one lane approach. I focused solely on my music for a couple of years in my early 20s. And I found that it was a part of me. It's definitely part of my spiritual path and what I'm here to do, my purpose in life. But I also am so intellectual and I love academia and I love the expansion of my mind and the challenges that come with really watering my mind, as well as the physicality of circus and physical expression. So it really is mind, body, and soul. And at a certain point, I just decided, like, this is all of me. I can't compromise this. Sometimes you have to tune out the noise because it is non conventional. Different folks, different strokes. It's not going to work for everyone. But for me, it's just who I am.
Yeah, I love that. And I love normalizing not being a super focused specialist in one thing, because we are human. I mean, there's so many more facets to every individual than the status quo world would have you believe. So I just think that's really cool. It's why I think you're a great person to talk to when it comes to Renaissance thinking and the Renaissance living kind of mindset.
I think one of the lessons I truly learned in my 20s was the importance of patience because I wanted everything right now. And I think that took me a bit of time to learn. For example, with music production, I felt like, oh man, this is going to take so long, even though it was like part of my heart's desire to learn how to self produce. I think there was a lot of fear around just the time commitment. I had already finished my bachelor's degree. I was so young. It's funny how when we're in our early 20s, I've observed this in myself as well as some other young folks. There's this sense of like, oh, there's not enough time. I have to decide now. And just like the importance of letting ourselves experiment and explore and have patience and really building something over time and just how much we can truly accomplish in a decade and set ourselves up for success. It's much greater to take that time because that time is going to pass either way, right? And why not invest in ourselves and invest in our dreams? And I think one of the things that I've observed that sets me apart in my way of thinking is I've always been like, okay, that's what I want. What do I have to do to get there? What are the steps I need to take? It's never been, oh, that's what I want, but I'm way over here. There's a huge gap, so I guess it's impossible. It's like, no, that's how we grow. So I think there's something really special about reverse engineering. And if we can desire it and dream it, it's possible for us. We wouldn't have that desire if it weren't meant for us. I truly believe that.
I think the Renaissance mindset in general, being desiring of wellness in all these different areas of life, whether it's your physical wellness, your intellectual wellness, spiritual, creative, it all feeds into the same thing. These areas cross-pollinate. I know that you've really inspired me to think more in terms of health and wellness and movement, things that I'm already naturally interested in, but you've definitely unlocked some different ways of thinking. And I think it's really important for people with this kind of multidisciplinary way of life to keep having conversations with each other. It's one of the reasons that I wanted to do this podcast. So I look forward to seeing as all these things progress for you. I want to go back to your early days and hear a little bit about the first sparks of creative expression for you growing up, because, you know, your interests span music, movement, aerial performance, so many things. What were those first sparks that just got you on that path?
Well, I would like to shout out my parents. I have been so blessed with the most supportive family, and they always really encouraged creativity and music and self expression. They always had music playing in the home. We have a piano in my childhood home. So I just grew up around music. My uncle's a musician. My cousins are musicians. So I was just really lucky to be surrounded by that kind of energy and love and support. And I remember my parents telling me that as a child, they would sing Old MacDonald to me and I would make the quacking noise. And I was kind of like how I started singing. I was dancing around the house by the time I was 3 or 4 years old, playing music. My dad got me this really cool radio kit. It was like a microphone that you could tune in to the actual radio. It had its own station. And so I would create little talk shows with my little microphone.
Amazing.
And yeah. So from there, it was writing. I was really into writing short stories by the time I was 4 or 5 years old. I would say that inspiration came from Dr. Seuss. The Foot Book. That was like my favorite. It was one of the books I used to teach myself how to read. So I was writing poetry and short stories, and I started singing when I was 7 years old. I watched a movie. I can't remember what it was called, but it was a Leanne Rimes movie because she was such a young child star. She had a rendition of Amazing Grace that she sung on the show. And I just thought it was the most beautiful thing ever. And it just so happened that my parents had her CD with that rendition. So I remember going upstairs because I was downstairs watching the movie, going upstairs, finding out they had this CD and putting it on and teaching myself how to sing Amazing Grace and emulating her. And that was kind of the very beginning. And from there, I just taught myself to sing by emulating other artists, a lot of pop stars, and being a mover. By the time I was 7, I joined the circus. So I was training at what was then Circus of the Star, which was all of 30 students in a tiny rec center in St. Paul. And it has now grown to be called Circus Juventus and house over 900 students. So it's been cool watching that grow as well and just witnessing the circus arts expand because it was such a different community back in the 90s. And now it just, with social media, it's blossomed and it's been a very cool journey.
So let me ask you then, what part of you gets nourished in performance that doesn't get fed in other areas of your life, like with wellness and music?
There's something about physical performance to me that I actually find to be a lot less intimidating than singing or speaking on stage. And I think it may be in part because that anticipation and energy of like getting up on a stage and speaking requires a sense of containment to channel that energy in a very almost more narrow, specific way. It's more intellectualized, while being a circus performer on stage, it's like very embodied, and that energy, you'll be nervous maybe backstage beforehand, but once you're up there, that energy is just like getting channeled through and released, and it has a place to go. So it requires less containment, if that makes sense. And therefore, for me, I find it to be more scary leading up to it, but less scary when I'm on stage because I can just be more free. This past summer, I spent 2 months training at NECA, which is the New England Circus Center in Vermont. I was a part of a cohort of between 10 and 16. There were 2 different sessions, so it was different groups of people. And it's been a long time since I was immersed in that type of circus experience where I was a full-on student for 8 weeks with intensive training and coaches kind of guiding me through. And it was really special to be a part of a community of people committed to that same vision. It can be just such a wonderful, fun, expressive, open-minded space, you know, like you can really let your weirdo show, and it can be very like theatrical, and we did a lot of fun like dynamic play using like theater prompts and physical movement and acro. So just that teamwork and team building and the trust that's required both in like entrusting yourself in your coach's hands when you're learning new, scary, dangerous skills, as well as trusting someone to pick you up on their shoulders and not drop you. And I think that was really special for me to reconnect with that aspect of circus that I've been out of touch with. I think when it comes to just like the art itself, there's just like a certain amount of commitment and discipline that it takes to show up every day. Aerial, it's a different way of moving and connecting with your body and with space. Because you're not just moving like in one plane, you're moving like in the air, horizontally and vertically, and then you're connecting with this hanging apparatus. So it just like opens up the mind in these very interesting ways. This summer actually really challenged me because it can be scary for your nervous system to be like doing new tricks. Like I have very little experience on swinging trapeze. I maybe tried it a handful of times as a kid. I did a little bit of performing on a kind of the OG swinging trapeze, which is called cloud swing. So a swinging trapeze has like usually a weighted bar with ropes attached, and you're swinging through the air. You of course have a harness on. The cloud swing is actually a rope swing. So they require different technique. Cloud swing is the one that I trained and performed on as a teenager. So it was really fun like reconnecting with that apparatus, but just certain skills you're up there, you're like, one, you're having to like regulate your nervous system because you're 15, 20 feet in the air. And then you're like doing these things and you're like, I don't even know how my body's going to do this. I've never done this before. Like, I can't even imagine it. And then you do it and you're like, oh, I can do it. It's just very validating. It builds a lot of self-confidence and self-trust to commit to yourself in that way and take those risks and come out on the other side stronger and feeling more capable. So I think that's like a really beautiful aspect of the evolution as an aerialist through like your growth. But that really pushed me out of my comfort zone. Even as a teenager, when I was performing on Cloud Swing, it was such a joy to perform because for some of the skills, you're diving out over an audience and just getting to like dive into the audience and like look up at them and connect in that way and see their awe on their face and to kind of inspire and move people is really thrilling. And then to kind of tap back into that so many years later and re-experience that embodiment and that apparatus, it was really interesting and really cool. And the coaches there are incredible and made me feel so safe, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally, which is so important when you're doing those kinds of feats. So I was really grateful to just be immersed in such a beautiful community. There are little pockets of circus communities all over the world that are just incredible spaces, incredible people. And I'm really grateful for the Minneapolis circus scene. It's so vibrant, and I think the Twin Cities in general are a very welcoming place for performance and kind of explorative theater and interdisciplinary arts. There's a lot of funding for artists here. So I've really appreciated the intersection of movement and combining that with other art forms. I think there's a lot of space for that here.
Do you think that community has become increasingly important to you as someone who is doing these kind of specialized artistic skills and putting together such a unique prism of a life? Do you think that it's been simultaneously harder to find the right communities and also increasingly rewarding when you do? Because that's how I feel.
Yes, absolutely. And I know we've had these conversations in the past. It can be a lonely road when you're building something that's non-conventional and that other people can't even fathom.
Mhm.
And you're like, hey, I'm here, see me. Like, this is me. And so having yourself reflected in others and having community spaces that embrace and accept us and all the facets and dynamic aspects of who we are as performers, as artists, as Renaissance souls, I think is truly special to find those spaces and find those people and build those connections.
Yeah, that's definitely powering my desire to do this podcast and anything else related because I know that we need each other. And you and I have talked so much about the loneliness, just feeling like you don't fit in anywhere and like you have to keep powering yourself and just relying on your own willpower and your own self-belief is just really hard after years. It's difficult. No human has an easy time just relying on unshakable self belief day in and day out. We need spaces where we feel encouraged and accepted and less alone and inspired by each other. So I love to hear that, you engaging in those things, whether it's a workshop or just expanding your own network and collaborating, having conversations like these, all those things.
Yes, definitely.
I think you also tend to have like an artful way about you with a lot of different things that you do. And I'm kind of obsessed with this idea of living artfully. I mean, I always say your life isn't just a series of days, it's a canvas of living art. I kind of tend to try and romanticize little things in my life or have these little rituals, small acts of presence and all kinds of different things that are like my favorite experiences that bring me back to myself or make me feel more like myself or make me feel more inspired. And I'm just kind of curious what you think. What does it mean to you to live artfully, first of all? And then what are some rituals or practices, whether they're big or small, that help you stay grounded in who you are or help you return to yourself when you're kind of losing your footing?
I love that. That's so beautiful. I think life should be about embracing the beauty and the small elements. I very much value being intentional, being mindful. I feel the most aligned and attuned and grounded when I am doing my spiritual practices on a regular basis, from meditation to reading spiritual literature to journaling. Those are kind of the top three pillars that I've been coming back to. I have had the tendency to fall off now and then, but I just find life feels so much more wholesome and balanced when I'm able to have those rituals for myself on a daily basis. And yeah, I completely agree. I think it's important for all of us to have rituals in alignment with our energy, our essence, that make us feel at home in ourselves. And that truly reflects in how we interact and engage with one another and with the world.
Absolutely. So you've traveled all over the world like me. How has your international spirit of exploration shaped your identity? Not just as an artist or a coach, but as a human?
Oh my goodness, so much. I just have the coolest parents. I was really blessed to travel quite a bit as a young person. My dad and mom and I took a lot of train trips across the country on the Amtrak growing up, and it was just such an amazing way to see and experience the landscape. Some of the trips that we took were maybe like even 2 days on the train, and I just remember as like a 10 year old, 11 years old, sitting in the lounge car, and there's these big giant floor to ceiling windows and chairs that you can sit in looking out of the train. And I would be listening to my music. I was really obsessed with Savage Garden at the time and Spice Girls. So I'd be listening to
Obviously.
that. Yeah. And the chorus, they were great too. And just journaling and dreaming and just in awe. I've always said that there's something so magical and inspiring about the self-awareness that comes from being in different backdrops. It almost like highlights these different parts of your essence and teaches you things about yourself, and it's so expansive, and just all the colors I've been able to play in when I explore different lands and cultures and meet people all over the world. And there's also something really cool about being human, and despite language barriers, despite cultural differences or different ways of seeing the world, still being a human and being able to connect from that place and from one's heart. I feel like once you have traveled the world, your heart is never in one place, because you end up falling in love with people and places everywhere, and those are forever a part of you. So I've been very much inspired by my travels and the people that I've traveled with and the connections that I've made across the globe. It's taught me so much about life and about humanity, and it's humbled me, made me more patient and more compassionate and more accepting. And I wouldn't trade those experiences for anything. I think studying abroad as a 19-year-old, backpacking all over Europe, without a phone, mind you, I still do not comprehend how I did that, because I rely on Google for everything now, even in my city. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So somehow I magically made my way around Europe for 6 months via train and plane with no cell phone. Just, good old traditional talking to people. Excuse me, how do I get here? So just being so young and having the experience of living in southern Spain and in Denmark, experiencing different languages and cultures and people, it was very impressionable and probably one of the highlights of my 20s. But it really did truly shape me into the person that I am and bestowed in me a deeper love of travel.
This is maybe me projecting my own experience, but do you find that being on a train in particular helps you write lyrics?
Ooh, I'm not sure if I've ever actually written songs on trains. I have definitely done a lot of journaling and writing. I listen to music. I read. I take in the landscape. I get lost in my thoughts. I most certainly get inspired. But that's really cool that that's what happens for you and you're able to tap into that energy for yourself.
Yeah, there's just something about being on the move. I mean, it can be on planes too, but there's something about trains, the type of motion,
Mm-hmm.
being on the ground as opposed to in the air and moving at high speed and getting this inspiration every second because you're seeing beautiful things or interesting things at least. And yeah, it's just really a funny thing. I was wondering if you experienced that as well, but I definitely agree that travel is so underrated when it comes to inspiring creativity because it's like you're adding new colors to your palette just by being over here instead of here.
Yes, it is such an immersive experience. And that is something I've always recognized and valued in life is having immersions because having a more interactive, dynamic period where you're really in the depths of something. For example, like me going and training in Vermont this summer and just being totally immersed in circus day in and day out. It molds you and shapes you and gives you this concentrated incubation period to really develop whatever it is that you're working on. And that could be in so many different forms, from going on an intentional retreat to travel to a training program. I just think those incubation periods are just so crucial for self-development and growth. And I'm really grateful that I learned that early on in life and that I've been strategic in incorporating that into my lifestyle and into my growth.
That's a really good point, too, because creative people in general, we tend to go through these spurts of growth and then a plateau and then growth and then a plateau. I mean, humans experience this in general, but creative people, it ebbs and flows a lot with life. And one of the most difficult things to accept as somebody who always wants to make stuff is that there are seasons where you're not going to make stuff. There are seasons where you're just absorbing and experiencing and synthesizing different elements of your life. And maybe there's going to be a season after that where you produce a lot. And I think we get really hard on ourselves when we're not constantly producing. But in order to produce, we need to be fueled because it doesn't come from nothing. Of course, you could say it comes from solitude. Yeah. Even if you're going nowhere and staying in the same room, you will find something to write about, to make. But yeah, just allowing for those different parts of the creative experience, the human experience, as somebody who likes to take things from the world and turn it into some kind of art or expression.
Yes, so well said. And this is where those containers can almost be like a pressure cooker that gives us just that little extra edge to emote or create or express that which maybe just needed that little extra push to create or emote and express.
You know, doing things in these dedicated experiences like a workshop or putting yourself, you hear a lot about people writing albums or writing books in the woods, like in a cabin. Dedicated incubator situations of some kind can be really great for creative people in general. I think it's so strange how your environment can really impact you so much. It's like you can have every intention of sitting down and doing the work, as they say. And while we all need to strive to do the work no matter what, there are a lot of things that can get in the way of creative flow. So I love that point. And it also brings me to this idea of people who are just struggling in general, whether they're maybe somebody listening feels disconnected from themselves or they're running on fumes or they're in a creative slump or something like that. So where would you encourage them to begin?
Yeah, so kind of piggybacking off of what you were already speaking to, just our environment. I think it's important to take inventory of all of the elements around us. What is working? What is not working? Maybe playing around, bringing in a new element, removing an element. Maybe some things are stagnant or not functional in our life anymore, or not in alignment anymore. And that's why we're feeling stuck. So I often feel like if I'm feeling overwhelmed or stuck, it's not because I don't have enough. It's because I have too much chaos. There's too much stuff. There's too many things around me or that I'm giving my energy to. Where attention goes, energy flows, right? So when we become intentional with our attention, I think we can start to become more aware of that inventory and what is serving us and what may no longer be. And creating more space, I think, can be the most functional thing we do for ourselves.
Do you think that the concept of being intentional, because this word gets thrown around a lot, but I think what it's really getting at is thinking carefully, right? Not just reacting, not just doing things out of habit, but really thinking and designing like what are the environments that enable you to be your best in all these different ways and how can you get there? And then when you say taking inventory, it just reminds me of that. It's like you're designing, and when you're designing, you're making all these decisions about what stays and what goes and what's working and what's not, and you're being intentional in the sense that you are thinking carefully about how things are affecting you and what you need and what's the best way for you to step forward, because creative people can get in this mode of like, I don't know what to do next and I don't know how to restart my creativity, or I don't know how to get out of this slump. And I think intentionality solves that problem by causing you to reverse engineer, deconstruct, construct, design, whatever word you want to use, in order to reach just even one step, the next step.
Yes, I love that, being the designer or the curator of one's life. And I think it's reminding ourselves like how much power we do have and reclaiming that energy and our ability to be mindful, be intentional. And it does take work, and it takes time and finesse to find that flow. And I think over time, as we express that and are intentional with that, we create momentum that will then serve us, especially in those moments where maybe we are feeling a bit stuck, when we've spent years feeding that intention and feeding that mindfulness. I think that serves us in those moments of frustration because we've already built that energy system and that flow into our being and into our livelihood.
Absolutely. So, Elena, I know we've talked a lot lately about everything from creativity to relationships to business to money. You're definitely one of the people that I go to for insight or feedback on a lot of different things because you're just truly a driven person and truly invested in so many different areas of your life. It's been really fun to talk to you today, and I appreciate your willingness to think deeply, to ask questions, to learn, to always grow, and to think big most of all, because when you're somebody trying to do something unique, it's really hard to be around small minds, and you need people who think big to encourage you. And I thank you for your presence in that way. And I know you give that energy to everybody that you know, and that's super awesome. So thank you for sharing your voice, your vision, your heart and your soul behind everything that you do. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Mandy. It's my pleasure. And thank you for all of the wonderful, thought-provoking questions. It's really fun to reflect on these things. And I always love our conversations and the way your mind works and everything you teach me as well. So truly grateful for you.
Likewise. And before we wrap up, where can everybody go to connect with you, find you on socials, etc.?
Yeah, so my primary Instagram handle is Elena the Creative, ELENA, and that is also my website, elenathecreative.com, for functional nutrition and health coaching and aerial instruction and fitness training. My business is Wellness Ecology, and the website is wellnessecology.co.
Amazing. I'll make sure to link all of that in the show notes. So if you're listening, be sure to find Elena at those places linked in the notes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.